Hey everybody, Ben for the Bonehead Podcast, and welcome to Blood Bowl 2025 Team Guides. We're going through every team in Blood Bowl 2025, Blood Bowl Season 3, and we're looking at the positionals, we're looking at the players, we're looking at what's changed, and we're looking at just how you can run a roster in the new Blood Bowl season. And today we're going to be looking at Gnomes. Okay, so in the world of Gnomes, to be fair, not a lot has changed. They are still very much tier 3, although I guess in this edition it's now tier 4. They can have an apothecary, and I guess one of the most important things when you're starting a team with Gnomes is choosing Halfling Thimblecup or Woodland League. Woodland? Because that will affect which star players you can take. If you want Rodney, take Woodland. If you want Puggy, take Halfling Thimblecup, basically. 50k rerolls, they're tier 4. Now, in this edition, there is no tier 3. They are all now tier 4. Because Games Workshop basically split up tier 2 into tier 2 and tier 3 to kind of put, like, Nurgle in its own little space, essentially, which meant all the stunty teams have been downgraded to tier 4. Right, the actual build-up of the Gnome roster hasn't changed at all. You get 0 to 16 Line Gnomes, 0 to 2 Beastmasters. Now, those are the Gnomes with Guard. You get 0 to 2 Illusionists, those are the Gnomes with Trickster. You get 0 to 2 Woodland Foxes, those are the teeny tiny gutter runners. They are fantastic little players, but they do tend to explode quite easily. And you get 0 to 2 of the Treemen without Loner. So, Gnomes. Gnomes are a really interesting one. They are basically expensive halflings, but instead of having dodge, they have wrestle and jump up, which means they, in theory, when you block them, can turn a both down, whether it's your opponent choosing a both down result as part of a block or you choosing a both down result as part of one of your blocks. They can turn that result from a everybody dies to a we both fall prone on the ground. Now that's really useful for a team that's got armor, 7+ everywhere, 6+ on the Woodland Fox. So a roster with wrestle kind of gets that inbuilt resilience. I will say, though, after having run Gnomes, and we've run them on the channel quite a bit now, wrestle, not as good as dodge. Who knew? But they still have a lot of potential, and when you kind of line it up with jump up, they can be really nippy, they can be really nifty, and they always have a chance at a cheeky 3+ dodge into the right square to then take a 2-die up with wrestle to take down your target. It's pretty cool. Now, the great thing about this roster is the Beastmasters. They get 0 to 2 of them, and they are line Gnomes, but they come with Guard, and it's fantastic because Guard on this roster is brilliant because it combos really nicely with your strength 6 trees, and most of the time what that means is you can get a nice 3-die block and then potentially another 3-die block. And the other brilliant thing about Guard is it can boost up a regular block with a regular Gnome to 1 die, maybe even 2 die territory. And when you've got wrestle, that really brings up the potential of dragging your opponent down. Now, you're only movement 5 basically across this roster, but jump up means that once you're prone, you can kind of still get up and still move around at movement 5. So you're almost movement 8 if you take wrestle, which is me really putting silver lining on it. Okay, 2 key things, 2 key skills on this roster that actually haven't really changed this edition is Illusionist. So Illusionist has the Trickster ability, which means when it is blocked, before you roll, you can position the Illusionist next to the attacker in any square, so they can bamf to the other side of them. Then the block happens, but what this can do is it can rejig the block math. So you can position your Illusionist into a place where maybe it's not a 3-die block coming at you because you're only strength 2, it's just a 2-die block, and it can be really useful and very frustrating against frenzy stuff. Now, because they've got wrestle and no integral dodge, once the Illusionist bamfs to the other side, they're probably still going to die, but it can be useful, and try not to forget it. And the Woodland Fox has My Ball, and My Ball is a little skill that we see on this player that basically he can't ever pass the ball. He can't hand off the ball, he can't pass the ball. The only way he can lose the ball is by scoring a TD or dying. Okay, so let's start with the Gnome lineman. So movement 5, strength 2, edge 3+, passing 4+, armor 7+, 40k apiece, jump up, right stuff, stunty, and wrestle. So, toot toot. So right stuff means they can be thrown by the Treemen who've got through a teammate. Stunty means that they ignore all modifiers on tackle zones when they're running around. So they are always going to be edge 3+, basically, unless you're up against prehensile tail or something. So they're always going to have a better than even odds of dodging in there. Now, as a stunty player, they don't actually have dodge, so you're going to be farming and using your own rerolls for this. because no integral dodge is pretty brutal on this one. Wrestle, we've already talked about that. It's a really useful combat skill. It can be quite defensive as well. So if you're up against a block heavy team, actually Wrestle is going to keep you safe quite a lot of the time. And because you've also got jump up, you're going to be slightly better off than your opponent. In fact, you're going to be a lot better off than your opponent because your armor is undoubtedly worse than theirs. So even if like a Dark Elf lineman takes a 1-die block, that's going to be a 2-die block, isn't it? A 2-die block on your Gnome lineman, they get a skull and a both down. Normally, the both down would potentially be pretty decent for the Dark Elf. They've got armor 9+. It's fine. You've got armor 7+. It's not fine. Turning that into a prone drops you both down. You've got jump up. You can get up. Next turn, you're still movement 5. They can get up next turn, and they're going to be down to movement 3. The only downside is, and be aware of this. This counts for you, all your different types of gnomes. You can elect to not use wrestle. So in that example where an opponent without block blocks you and ends up with the block result being the best one, sometimes it will be more beneficial to you to just go, nah, turnover. Your opponent takes a turnover. If you take wrestle, it's not a turnover and they can keep going. It's going to keep your gnomes alive, but it's also going to keep your player's turn alive. So bear that in mind when you're running gnomes. So stat line, lackluster, cost 40k, quite expensive for this when you think you can get a thrall or a hobgoblin. Agility on a primary, okay, let's just be real. With every gnome, dodge is wonderful. I'm sure there's some other cool stuff, but it's dodge. Dodge is the one you want. Now, the downside is that it's an elite skill in this edition, so that's going to be 30k increase in cost for your gnome, which is going to take your gnomes to 70k. However, wrestle and dodge and stunty becomes really, really brilliant. Brilliant is a stretch. It becomes really, really better. So a dodge gnome lineman is fantastic. Any dodging gnome is great. Tricksters and the guard boys, when they get dodge, they start really cooking. But even your bog standard gnome lineman then just becomes a super pro halfling, which is pretty awesome. So secondary skills. So primary skill is 3 SPP for a random. You roll twice and pick. Bit ropey on a gnome lineman. 6 SPP to automatically get dodge is fantastic. It's 2 DDs or 1 touchdown and an MVP to get there, so it's a bit of a long way, but it's worth it when you get there. 10 SPPs can get you a chosen secondary skill. Now these guys can take devious skills and general skills and strength skills. Now, when it comes to strength, you've already got guard on the line on your roster in the way of the beastmasters, but guard could be interesting. Break tackle could be interesting. I know, I've got to mention it every episode. Block. Look, the gnome linemen, get them to dodge. That's what you want them to do. You can be like, well, a different skill is 20k. Yeah, but 30k is going to keep you alive. Like, it's going to be worthwhile. Devious is where your dirty player and stuff like that comes in. There's a lot of fun stuff you can do with these guys, but they've already got jump up. So when they get dodge, you can kind of like run them anywhere, throw them anywhere, and assuming their armor holds, they might be really good. Now, these guys are actually really good. So the Gnome Beastmasters, movement 5, strength 2, edge 3+, passing 4+, and armor 8+. So they've got a little bit more armor than your standard lineman. Let me just check their passing stat. Is still a 4+, yeah. A lot of the passing got increased in this edition. 55k, it's actually not that much more expensive than a lineman. It's an interesting one. When you look at the halfling roster, their linemen are 30k and their positionals are 50 or 55, and that feels brutal. On this roster, 15k for this upgrade is almost an automatic pick. In fact, it is an automatic pick. If you're running gnomes, you've got to run the Beastmasters. I appreciate that if you're running a tournament build or you're trying to keep your team value low, then you may not want to, but this is super, super, super useful. So 55k for these positionals. They've still got jump up. They've still got stunty. They've still got wrestle. They lose right stuff. So the Gnome Beastmaster is essentially the hefty of this team, if you think about it from in halfling parlance. But they get guard. They get guard. Guard is wonderful. Now, the cool thing here is because they've got stunty, they can actually just take a 3+ dodge into any position to get that guard to where you want to go. They don't have dodge to start with, so you might use a couple of team rerolls to get where you want to get, but being able to plop a little dude exactly where you want them to be to give your other players +1 to their blocks, it can be really, really, really useful. Especially when you consider you've got the Fox, who's actually edge 2+, and does have stunty and dodge, so you can kind of fandangle your Gnome Beastmaster to a beneficial positional, and then you can just blitz your Fox basically anywhere you want. It may not be the best, but you've got an angle there. Or if you combo him with a standard lineman, you could potentially set up a 1 or 2 die block, a 2 die blitz from another gnome with wrestle, which is going to be really effective at dropping the ball carrier, and then your Edge 2++ Fox swoops in, grabs the ball and runs off with it. It's great in theory. Realistically, the Gnome Beastmaster is just excellent to buddy up with some Treemen on your offensive drive and just murder stuff with a much better chance of blocking. The great thing here, Gnome Beastmaster in the middle of 2 trees, 3 die block, 3 die block. If anybody's left standing, your Gnome's got 2 friends now who are probably unmarked, which means your Gnome then counts as being strength 4, and he can probably get a 2 die block as well. And he's got wrestle to keep himself alive. So it's a really cool positional. Skills-wise, look, it's agility for this guy. Agility on a primary, and DGS, yeah, exactly the same for standard gnomes, and exactly what I said for gnomes is true of this guy. Getting him dodge is superb. At that point, you've got a really mobile guard piece, and that can be so much fun. All right, now talking of fun, we've got the Gnome Illusionist. Now, these guys have got exactly the same stats as your standard gnome lineman, so 5-2, 3+ edge, passing 4+. Let me just double check that one. No, yes, they're passing 3+. Okay. Look, I'll be honest with you, passing game for gnomes is not super real. They don't have any integral catch, and where they don't have any integral dodge, you kind of, it's not, don't, yeah. There's the Fox. The Fox is cool to pass to. So the Gnome Illusionist having that passing 3+ can be cool, and I know there's some interesting stuff you can do, because these guys can take agility and passing. So technically you could go dump off with this guy and kind of farm the ball off to the Fox, because you get to use illusion, you get to use Trickster to bounce around and then make their part. That there's some stuff you can do. It is subpar. Like, you are just essentially souping up. Like, if your game plan is, oh, I'm going to get my Gnome Illusionist hit by the opponent, I think you're missing a trick. Even if he is a trickster, that is not the kind of trickstering you really want to be doing. Like, even if you're just having fun with gnomes, like, it's cool to do, but it's not great. So whenever an opposition player attempts to perform a block action against this player, or a special action that targets this player directly, with the exception of block caused by ball and chain, so if they get blocked or if they get stabbed, this player may use this trait. Before determining how many dice are rolled, this player may be removed from the pitch and placed in any unoccupied square adjacent to the player performing the block. If this player uses this trait to be placed on the ball, they may attempt to pick it up before any dice are rolled. That's actually really quite interesting. So, yeah. The Trickster is a really good one. It's a really useful skill to just have a chance to choose where to die a lot of the time. But in theory, if you want to use it positively, the idea is that you want to set up a trap. So your opponent blocks the illusionist, he then bounces the other side of him, gets some supports or removes some supports to turn it into a less good block for your opponent. That's not often how it happens. The great thing about the illusionist, right, you've got that integral 3+ passing skill. You've got the access to boost that up a bit. Realistically, the Gnome Illusionist is a good ball carrier, because you really do get to choose where he goes to die. If it's going to be beneficial for him to be the other side of the blitz, actually you can do that, and that's what's likely to happen. Sure, live the dream, take punt, have a great time, but realistically this guy's really fun with dodge, and then really, really fun with sidestep, because you get to choose where he dies twice then. It's a cool skill. It's not a game-breaking skill, but it's really interesting, and you can set up some fun stuff on the pitch. And you're going to get very bored of me saying this, even though he can take some cool passing stuff. And I do quite like the idea of an accurate Gnome Illusionist being the passer on the team. Realistically, dodge just makes him a better lineman, so if he gets into trouble, he can kind of get out of it again. And once he's got dodge and wrestle, he's in pretty good odds to stay alive. Until he gets dodge, he's not. Ooh, the Woodland Fox, who is, for all intents and purposes, a tiny gutter runner. Movement 7, Strength 2, Edge 2+, Armor 6+. Right. Strength 2, Armor 6+ is pretty brutal. This guy does explode. But Movement 7, Edge 2+ is pretty nippy when it comes to the Fox. 50k, bargain when compared to the 40k alignment. Dodge, My Ball, Sidestep, and Stunty. So, Stunty with dodge, no right stuff. You can't throw a Fox. That's been banned appropriately. Like, don't get your little trumpets out. Sidestep dodge is a little dodge step edge 2+ stunty piece. Now that means that when you block him, he gets to choose where to die, except he's already got dodge, so it's much less likely Still likely, but much less likely that he's going to die. And if he becomes the ball carrier, that becomes super slippery. That movement 7 with Edge 2+ and integral dodge and stunty means that unless he's running past something with a prehensile tail, this guy is 2++ infinity to just go wherever he wants. And movement 7, remember, it's really movement 9. So this guy can be, if the fox gets the ball, he's gone. You will get one chance to hit that fox. If it goes wrong, he's got dodge and sidestep. He's going to end up in a much better position and he's going to get to run around. The downside of the fox is he's got my ball, which means he can never elect to give the ball away. It has to be beaten out of him or as part of a touchdown celebration. So he can't hand off. He can't pass. He's got no passing stat. It's fine. Like, you kind of want to, in theory, move your gnomes up, have your foxes there to be really mobile support pieces, and then at some point, if you need to break out with a fox, you hand him the ball on a 2+, and he takes a couple of 2++ dodges out of dodge and into the end zone. Really, it's a very solid theory. In practice, the fox will be amazing until he does get caught at some point, and then he will explode and die. It's pretty common, and I don't think it's a bad strategy to keep a fox on the bench. Run 1 on your defensive drives, maybe run 2 on an offensive drives if you need to score in 2 turns and don't want to do the throw teammate. Having 1 fox is a lot easier to protect, and you will need to protect him because your opponent is going to target this positional because it's so effective at scoring. No primary skills, only agility on a secondary. And to be fair, 14 SPP for a stat up on a Woodland fox. If he lives that long, it could be cool. The best thing you can give him if you get to 10 SPP and take an agility skill is like sure feet or sprint. Like not even hit and run is something you want to do particularly well. So I think just save TV bloat. If you get to 10 SPP somehow with the fox, just pray to Nuffle. You get to 14 and then you end up with a movement 8 fox. And I like that very much. And 2 more players, you've got the Old Turn Forest Treemen. Movement 2, Strength 6, Edge 5+, Passing 5+, Armor 11+. They come in at 120k. Deep Breath, Mighty Blow, Stand Firm, Strong Arm, Take Root, Thick Skull, Throw Teammate, Timber. It's a Treeman. You've got no loner there. And from a nega trait point of view, Movement 2 and Take Root. So whenever he does anything, he's got to roll to see if his roots get stuck in the ground. If they do, he's there basically for the rest of the drive. If they don't, then he's wandering around at Movement 2, which is a bit slow. And realistically, that's everything bad about the Treeman. He can't fail an action, really. You can't fail a blitz. You can't fail Bonehead. He doesn't have it. He's blocking at Strength 6, and you've got guard on this roster, and you've got mobile pieces on this roster. You should be able to farm 3 die blocks with your Treeman, and he's got Mighty Blow, so when they hit, it's going to hit hard, which is fantastic. Your 2 Treemen are going to be the only thing on this roster that's removing players. So help them do it in any way you can. The cool thing about this edition is Throw Teammate got a little bit better in that 1, you can also throw the ball and a teammate at the same time. Chef's kiss, should have always been the case. And 2, a superb pass is now just an accurate throw. It will still scatter, but it's an accurate throw. And this guy has strong arm, which takes him from passing 5+ to passing 4+. So if you throw a gnome 3 squares, 50% of the time, it's going to be an accurate pass. A superb throw is what it's called. If the gnome lands that superb throw, achievement unlocked, the Treeman gets an SPP for a completion. Realistically, if you're throwing a gnome, you're probably throwing him 6 squares, and it's going to be a 5+ throw, which is still not bad. Now, there's some cool stuff there. You can get Bullseye, which means on a superb throw, he doesn't scatter, which is pretty fun. And there's some shenanigans you can do in the Devious Tree with your gnomes. I don't think it's really worth worrying about unless you're doing something funny at a tournament. But look, your Treeman is going to be there to throw your gnomes when necessary, but realistically, he's going to be there to punch stuff as much as possible. He's got Stand Firm and Strength 6 and Armor 11+ and Thick Skull. He's there to stand on the line and punch and be punched, and every now and again, pretend he's a trebuchet. Okay, so Gnomes were a great addition to Blood Bowl 2020. They were the second last team. They were the last brand new team before Bretonnians. So it was really cool to see them land. And they're not a bad box, but you don't get the Treemen. So I will start this by saying the Treemen are so important to the Gnomes. They are just so important to the Gnomes. Go out and buy a Treemen. Go buy 2 Treemen. Go get 2 Treemen. Please get 2 Treemen. It's the right way. It's just the right thing. You need Treemen. But if you do pop into your local game shop and you're like, oh, dude, these Gnomes look cool. You can run them without a Treeman, and this is what your roster looks like. 8 Gnome linemen, 2 beastmasters, 2 tricksters, 2 foxes, 4 apothecaries, and a reroll. No, wait. I don't mind that, but 4 rerolls and an apothecary... Apothecary? Apothecary? Apothecary makes... is fine. It brings you to 1,000,000 gold. You get to run everything in the box, 14 players, but what I'm going to talk about here is you will need rerolls on this roster, and at 50k they're quite cheap. So even when you introduce the trees, you want to have 3 rerolls, realistically, minimum on gnomes, because your line dudes do not start with dodge. You're going to need to dodge at some point. Stunty lures you into dodging as well, because it's 3+. So you're going to burn rerolls on that. It's just going to happen. 2 rerolls can be done. But I think you're going to need 3 in, like, as a minimum. The apothecary, though, however, it's an auto pick. The foxes are wicked, but they explode as soon as you mention their name. The beastmasters with guard are really useful and really important. The tricksters, they're just slightly better linemen, really, with a cool skill. But that apothecary, man, he's going to be needed to keep a fox and or a beastmaster alive. So it's really useful whether you're playing a one-off game or whether you are going league. Which obviously we'll cover when we do a starting roster video for gnomes, like how much you want to balance your team value, what star players you kind of want to budget for. But the apothecary is going to be really, really, really useful. Okay, so gnomes. I love gnomes. They're a great addition to the Blood Bowl game. They are absolutely positively not OP in any way, shape or form. They can do some cool stuff, and in this edition they can still do cool stuff, arguably cooler stuff, given that secondary skills are 10 SPP, given that a stat up is now 14 SPP. In theory there's some stuff you can do, but realistically the biggest buff that gnomes got is that throw teammate got better because you superb throw your Treemen, fantastic, and that you can still throw the ball. So if you want to go for a one-turn touchdown with your gnomes, by throwing, you can pick up and hand off and then throw a gnome. It gives you more options. It's not really the gnome primary game plan. If you want to be throwing tiny dudes, then go with ogres or halflings, but it's that extra level to gnomes that just got better, and they're already quite an interesting running game if you can keep your foxes alive. Guard spam for gnomes can be pretty brutal too, so there is that dream. Easier in tournaments than league, but league, gnomes, they are an underdog. They're an underfox, and they're really, really fun. Anyway, let me know what you think of gnomes in this edition, and we'll be back soon with more Blood Bowl content. Happy blocking.